Rain pounded the windows as Ethan Carter stood frozen, watching the woman he loved betray him. His wife, Lily, was in the arms of another man. The shock was like a punch to the gut, a blow that left him breathless and disoriented. How could she do this to him, to their family? Fury boiled within him, and he knew he couldn't let this slide. Confronting them was inevitable. Ethan had always considered himself a reasonable man, but in that moment, reason abandoned him. His heart raced as he stormed into the house, his footsteps echoing through the empty hallway. Lily's eyes widened in horror as she saw him, her lover frozen beside her. The confrontation escalated quickly, turning violent as Ethan's rage took control. His fists flew, words of betrayal and hurt spilling from his lips. The man, a colleague of Lily's, tried to defend himself, but Ethan's anger was overwhelming. "How could you?" Ethan yelled, his voice trembling. "We built a life together, and this is how you repay me?" Lily's tearful apologies fell on deaf ears. The chaos of the fight left the living room in disarray, broken furniture mirroring Ethan's shattered heart. In the aftermath, Ethan fled the scene, driving aimlessly through the stormy night. Each mile fueled his dark intentions, his mind consumed by thoughts of revenge. Ethan's thoughts drifted back to his college days at the University of Texas at Austin. He was a diligent student in the Cockrell School of Engineering, striving for a degree in chemical engineering. Life was simpler then, filled with the optimism of youth. During his first year, he met Lily. She was captivating, with a passion for music that matched his own for science. Their connection was instant, and their relationship blossomed quickly. They spent countless hours together studying in the library, exploring Austin, and dreaming of their future. But as their relationship deepened, so did their challenges. Balancing demanding academic schedules and part-time jobs left them both exhausted. Ethan noticed subtle changes in Lily. She became distant, her mind often elsewhere. When he confronted her, she dismissed his concerns, attributing her behavior to stress. Years later, Ethan's career was flourishing. He had landed a lucrative job at a top engineering firm, and he and Lily were married with a beautiful daughter, Emma. Their life seemed perfect on the surface, but underneath, the cracks were beginning to show. Lily's late nights at work, her frequent business trips, and her increasing emotional distance gnawed at Ethan's peace of mind. The night of the betrayal replayed in his mind as he drove through the rain. He had come home early from a business trip, hoping to surprise Lily. Instead, he found her in the arms of another man. The scene was seared into his memory, a constant reminder of his shattered trust. Determined to understand the full extent of Lily's betrayal, Ethan began an investigation of his own. He combed through her emails, phone records, and social media, piecing together a timeline of deceit. Each discovery was a fresh wound, deepening his resolve for revenge. He tracked their movements, planned their interactions, and rehearsed his confrontations. He envisioned every detail, from the words he would say to the look of shock on their faces. The night of the planned confrontation arrived. Ethan lured Lily and her lover to a secluded cabin under the pretense of wanting to talk. The setting was perfect, isolated, with the storm providing a dramatic backdrop. As they arrived, Ethan confronted them with his findings, his voice cold and controlled. "You thought I wouldn't find out," he began, his eyes locked on Lily's. "You thought you could lie to me, deceive me, and I would just let it slide." The confrontation turned violent quickly. The ensuing struggle was chaotic, with Ethan's pent-up rage driving him. When it was over, he stood over them, breathing heavily, the reality of his actions sinking in. The violence left him shaken, the enormity of what he had done settling over him like a dark cloud. Ethan retreated to a small, isolated cabin, seeking solace in solitude. He spent days reflecting on his life, his decisions, and the events that led him to this point. He realized he couldn't navigate this journey alone, and reached out to his old friend Brett. They hadn't spoken in years, but Brett welcomed him with open arms. Over several long conversations, Ethan began to open up about his pain and his actions. At Brett's urging, Ethan sought therapy. The sessions were difficult, forcing him to confront his deepest fears and regrets. He spoke about his childhood, his relationship with Lily, and the betrayal that shattered his world. The process was slow, but gradually, he began to find a semblance of peace. Ethan's journey towards redemption included making amends. He reached out to those he had wronged, including Lily. Their conversations were painful but necessary, allowing both of them to find some closure. Lily, too, was struggling with guilt and regret. She admitted to her mistakes, acknowledging the pain she had caused. In their conversations, Ethan learned about Lily's own struggles. She had felt neglected and unloved, turning to someone else in a moment of weakness. It didn't excuse her actions, but it helped Ethan understand the complexities of their relationship. They both had contributed to the erosion of their marriage, and acknowledging this was a crucial step towards healing. Dear viewers, more than 90% watch my content without subscribing. If you still have not subscribed, then I ask you to do so. For me, this is the best motivation to continue. Ethan's life slowly began to rebuild. He moved to a new city, started a new job, and focused on creating a better future for himself. The scars of the past remained, but they no longer defined him. He worked hard to establish a stable life, taking one day at a time. Years later, Ethan met someone new. Their relationship was built on honesty and mutual respect, a stark contrast to his past. He was cautious, but hopeful, determined not to repeat his mistakes. This new chapter in his life brought challenges, but also joy and fulfillment. Ethan often reflected on his journey. The pain, the anger, and the eventual healing had shaped him into a stronger, wiser person. He realized that while betrayal had broken him, it had also paved the way for a new beginning. He found solace in knowing that he had faced his demons and come out the other side, scarred but not defeated. As Ethan looked towards the future, he felt a sense of peace. The storm had passed, and he was ready to embrace whatever came next. He knew that life would always have its challenges, but he was confident in his ability to face them. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had led him to a place of acceptance and hope. Ethan's story was one of betrayal, rage, and ultimately, redemption. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of forgiveness. He had faced his darkest fears, confronted his deepest pain, and emerged stronger. His journey had taught him that while the past could not be changed, the future was his to shape. In his new life, Ethan found happiness in the small moments, sharing a quiet dinner, walking in the park, laughing with friends. These moments, once taken for granted, were now cherished. They were the building blocks of his new life, a life rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. Ethan's journey wasn't over. Healing was a continuous process, and he was committed to it. He continued his therapy, worked on his relationships, and strived to be a better person each day. The lessons he had learned were invaluable, guiding him as he navigated the complexities of life. As he sat by the window of his new home, watching the rain gently tap against the glass, Ethan felt a sense of calm. The rain, once a symbol of his darkest moments, now felt cleansing. It was a reminder that storms, no matter how fierce, eventually pass, leaving behind a world renewed and ready for a fresh start. Ethan took a deep breath and smiled. His journey had been difficult, but it had led him to a place of peace and hope. He was ready to embrace the future, whatever it might hold, with an open heart and a resilient spirit. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt prepared to walk it, step by step, towards a brighter tomorrow. Ethan's drive away from the confrontation was a blur of headlights and raindrops. His mind replayed the images of Lily's betrayal over and over, each repetition deepening his sense of devastation. By the time he reached the small, remote cabin, he was exhausted, both physically and emotionally. The cabin, a modest retreat nestled in the woods, belonged to Brett's family. Ethan had spent many weekends there during college, a place of refuge and camaraderie. Now, it felt like a prison of his own making. As he unpacked his sparse belongings, Ethan's mind drifted back to the early days of his relationship with Lily. They had met in a freshman physics class, a required course for his engineering degree. Ethan was immediately struck by Lily's intelligence and quick wit. She was studying music performance at the College of Fine Arts, a contrast to his scientific pursuits. Their differences intrigued him, drawing him into her world of melodies and rhythms. Their first date had been a simple coffee at a campus cafe, but it felt magical. They talked for hours, sharing their dreams and fears. Ethan was captivated by Lily's passion for music and her ambition to one day perform on the world's biggest stages. She was equally fascinated by his dedication to engineering and his desire to create innovative solutions for environmental challenges. They were an unlikely pair, but their connection was undeniable. Ethan's thoughts returned to the present, the harsh reality of his situation crashing down on him. He tried to sleep, but the silence of the cabin was deafening, amplifying his inner turmoil. He tossed and turned, memories of Lily and their life together flooding his mind. Their wedding day, the birth of their daughter Emma, family vacations and quiet nights at home, all these moments now felt tainted by her betrayal. In the morning, Ethan woke to the sound of rain still pattering against the roof. He made himself a cup of coffee and sat by the window, staring out at the misty forest. The isolation was both a curse and a blessing, giving him the space to think, but also leaving him alone with his thoughts. He knew he needed to understand how things had gone so wrong. How had he missed the signs? What had driven Lily to seek solace in another man's arms? Determined to find answers, Ethan began to reflect on their life together. He recalled the subtle changes in Lily over the past year. She had become increasingly distant, often lost in her own thoughts. Her late nights at work and frequent business trips had become more common, and she always seemed to have an excuse. Ethan had tried to be supportive, believing her when she said she was just under a lot of pressure at work. But now he realized he had been naive. Ethan's phone buzzed, breaking his reverie. It was a message from Brett. "Hey man, how are you holding up? Let's meet up later today. We need to talk." Grateful for the distraction, Ethan agreed. He needed someone to talk to, someone who could help him make sense of the chaos. Brett had always been a good friend, and Ethan trusted him implicitly. Later that day, Ethan drove to a nearby diner where he and Brett had agreed to meet. The place was quiet, with only a few patrons scattered around. Brett was already there, seated in a corner booth, nursing a cup of coffee. He stood up as Ethan approached, giving him a firm handshake and a concerned look. "Hey Ethan, you look like you've been through hell," Brett said, his voice filled with sympathy. "Feels like it," Ethan replied, sliding into the booth opposite Brett. "I can't believe this is happening." Brett nodded. "I know, man, it's a lot to process, but we're going to get through this. First, tell me everything, from the beginning." Ethan took a deep breath and began recounting the events leading up to his discovery of Lily's affair. He described the gradual changes in her behavior, his growing suspicions, and the devastating moment when he walked in on her with another man. Brett listened intently, his expression a mix of anger and concern. "That bastard," Brett muttered when Ethan finished. "I'm sorry, Ethan. No one deserves to go through this." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. "I just don't understand why. Was it something I did? Or didn't do? How did we get here?" Brett sighed. "Relationships are complicated. It's rarely just one thing. But right now, you need to focus on yourself. Take the time to process this and heal." Ethan appreciated Brett's advice, but the idea of healing felt impossible. His life had been turned upside down, and he didn't know where to begin picking up the pieces. Over the next few days, Ethan threw himself into work at the cabin. Chopping wood, fixing the roof, and tending to the garden provided a physical outlet for his anger and frustration. The manual labor exhausted him, making it easier to sleep at night. Yet, no matter how hard he worked, the memories of Lily's betrayal were always there, lurking in the back of his mind. Ethan continued his investigation, driven by a need to understand the full extent of Lily's infidelity. He delved into her emails, social media accounts, and phone records, piecing together a timeline of deceit. Each discovery was a fresh wound, deepening his sense of betrayal. He found messages and photos, evidence of meetings and trips they had taken together. The more he uncovered, the more he realized how deeply entrenched the affair had been. One evening, while sifting through Lily's old emails, Ethan came across a series of exchanges with her lover. The messages were filled with declarations of love and plans for a future together. Dear viewers, I ask you to subscribe to the channel under this video. I will be very grateful to you. Reading them felt like a knife to the heart. He had always thought their marriage was strong, that their love was unbreakable. But these emails painted a different picture, one of dissatisfaction and longing for something else. As Ethan sat in the dim light of the cabin, he felt a wave of despair wash over him. His life, once so full of promise and happiness, had been reduced to this, a solitary man, consumed by bitterness and pain. He knew he couldn't continue down this path. If he did, he would destroy himself. The next day, Ethan decided to take a different approach. Instead of focusing on the betrayal, he would try to understand what had gone wrong in their marriage. He reached out to a therapist recommended by Brett and scheduled an appointment. He also decided to talk to Lily, not to confront her, but to have an honest conversation about their relationship. The first therapy session was difficult. Ethan found it hard to open up, to articulate the depth of his pain and anger. But the therapist, Dr. Harper, was patient and understanding. She guided him through his emotions, helping him to see that his feelings were valid and that it was okay to grieve. Over several sessions, Ethan began to piece together the factors that had contributed to the breakdown of his marriage. He realized that both he and Lily had made mistakes. He had become so focused on his career and providing for their family that he had neglected their emotional connection. Lily, on the other hand, had sought solace in someone else instead of communicating her needs and frustrations to Ethan. As painful as it was, this realization brought Ethan a measure of clarity. He understood that their marriage had been struggling for a long time, and that Lily's affair was a symptom of deeper issues. This didn't absolve her of responsibility, but it helped Ethan to see the situation in a more nuanced light. Talking to Lily was even harder than therapy. They met at a neutral location, a quiet park where they could talk without interruptions. Lily looked anxious, her eyes red from crying. Ethan felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and a lingering sense of love for the woman he had once considered his soulmate. "Thank you for meeting me," Ethan began, his voice steady but strained. Lily nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. I know I hurt you, and I can't take back what I've done." Ethan took a deep breath. "I need to understand, Lily. Why did you do it? What went wrong between us?" Lily hesitated, then began to speak, her voice trembling. She explained how she had felt increasingly isolated and unappreciated. She had tried to talk to Ethan, but he was always so busy with work. When her colleague showed her attention and understanding, she had been vulnerable and made a terrible mistake. Listening to her, Ethan felt a mix of empathy and frustration. He could see her perspective, but it didn't erase the pain of her betrayal. However, their conversation was a step towards closure. It allowed both of them to express their feelings and acknowledge their mistakes. After their talk, Ethan felt a sense of relief. It wasn't a complete resolution, but it was a start. He continued his therapy, working through his emotions and learning to forgive. Not just Lily, but also himself. He realized that holding on to anger and resentment would only hinder his healing. In the following months, Ethan focused on rebuilding his life. He moved to a new city, started a new job, and reconnected with old friends. He even began to explore new hobbies, like hiking and painting, activities that brought him peace and joy. Slowly, the wounds began to heal. Ethan also took steps to strengthen his relationship with Emma. She had been deeply affected by the turmoil in their family, and Ethan wanted to be there for her. They spent more time together, talking, playing, and just enjoying each other's company. Emma's laughter and resilience reminded Ethan of the importance of love and connection. Ethan found himself in a new relationship years later. It was different from his marriage to Lily, built on honesty, mutual respect, and a shared commitment to communication. He met Sarah through mutual friends, and their connection was instant. She was kind, understanding of his past, and patient with his healing process. Their relationship progressed slowly but steadily. Sarah was a teacher at a local elementary school, with a passion for education and a love for children that mirrored Ethan's own dedication to his daughter, Emma. They enjoyed spending time together, whether it was exploring new restaurants in the city or simply relaxing at home. Despite his newfound happiness with Sarah, Ethan's journey towards healing was far from over. The scars of his past still lingered, haunting him in moments of vulnerability. He continued his therapy, now less frequent but still necessary for maintaining his emotional well-being. Dr. Harper had become a trusted confidant, guiding Ethan through the complexities of forgiveness and self-discovery. Together, they explored his childhood, his fears of abandonment, and the impact of his parents' divorce on his own relationships. Through these sessions, Ethan began to understand the patterns of behavior that had contributed to the breakdown of his marriage with Lily. One afternoon, as Ethan sat in Dr. Harper's office, he reflected on how far he had come. I never thought I would find happiness again, he admitted, his voice tinged with gratitude. Dr. Harper smiled warmly. Healing takes time, Ethan. You've done the hard work of facing your demons and learning from your past. That's something to be proud of. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. I still have moments when I feel overwhelmed by everything that happened, but Sarah has been a constant source of support. I never imagined I could feel this way again. Dr. Harper's expression softened. Love has a way of finding us when we least expect it. Sarah sees the strength in you, Ethan. She sees the man who has faced adversity and emerged stronger. As Ethan continued his journey of self-discovery, he made a conscious effort to live in the present. He focused on building meaningful connections with others, cultivating friendships, and nurturing his relationship with Sarah. They shared dreams of the future, discussing travel plans, career aspirations, and even the possibility of starting a family together someday. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of Ethan's apartment, watching the sun set over the city skyline, Sarah squeezed his hand gently. You've been through so much, Ethan, she said softly, but you've never let it define you. I admire your strength. Ethan smiled gratefully. I couldn't have done it without you, Sarah. You've been my rock. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the warmth of their shared connection filling the space between them. Ethan thought about how far he had come since the night of Lily's betrayal. The pain was still there, a faint echo in the recesses of his heart, but it no longer held power over him. As they continued to build their life together, Ethan found himself embracing the lessons of forgiveness and resilience that he had learned along his journey. He no longer saw his past as a burden, but as a catalyst for growth and transformation. Each day was a reminder of the strength of the human spirit and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. In the quiet moments of reflection, Ethan often thought about Emma. Their relationship had evolved over the years, shaped by the challenges they had faced together. She had grown into a confident young woman with a passion for photography and a fierce determination to make a difference in the world. Ethan was proud of the woman she had become and grateful for the bond they shared. One evening, as they celebrated Emma's graduation from college with a small family dinner, Ethan raised his glass in a toast. To new beginnings, he said, his voice filled with emotion. Emma smiled warmly. To new beginnings, she echoed, her eyes shining with pride. As Ethan looked around the table at the faces of the people he loved, Sarah, Emma, and their close friends who had become like family, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. He had found happiness again, not in spite of his past, but because of it. His journey had been marked by pain and heartache, but it had also been a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. In the years that followed, Ethan continued to cherish each moment, knowing that life was a precious gift. He pursued his passions with renewed vigor, whether it was hiking in the mountains, volunteering at a local animal shelter, or simply enjoying quiet evenings at home with Sarah. As he sat on the balcony with Sarah, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky, Ethan felt at peace. The scars of his past had faded into the background, reminders of the strength he had found in his darkest moments. He knew that life would always have its challenges, but he also knew that he had the strength and resilience to face whatever came his way. In the quiet moments of reflection, Ethan often thought about the journey that had brought him to this place. The pain, the anger, and the eventual healing. He had faced his demons and emerged stronger on the other side. His story was a testament to the power of forgiveness, the importance of self-discovery, and the enduring nature of love. As he looked at Sarah, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the balcony light, Ethan felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had been his guiding light, his source of strength and inspiration. Together, they had created a life filled with love, laughter, and hope for the future. Ethan knew that his journey was far from over, and he welcomed the unknown with an open heart and a renewed sense of purpose. He had learned that life was a series of beginnings, each one offering the opportunity for growth and transformation. As he held Sarah's hand in his, Ethan felt a sense of peace wash over him. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had led him to this moment, to a place of acceptance, gratitude, and love. And as they sat together, watching the world unfold before them, Ethan knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be.